Good evening. Hello, everyone. It is so wonderful to see you all here. Welcome to our annual Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Celebration. The Planning Committee and I are so glad that we can be together, both in this space and via live stream. Welcome to all of those joining us online. This is our time tonight for music, for learning, and eating together. From the Greek symposium to the Sabbath dinner, from the open tables at iftar street banquets and community meals at Sikh longars to church basement potlucks, people have ever gathered around to share food and laughter, extend hospitality, and grow in love for one another. Here we gather to give thanks for the prophet king, who offered all people a welcome seat at a table of dignity and justice, who proclaimed that we are each tied in a single garment of destiny. Tonight I'd like to offer a portion of one of King's prayers, first delivered in 1959 during a sermon about Mohandas K. Gandhi from the pulpit of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. This prayer invokes some of the most expansive religious and philosophical language of his day, and I invite us to add additional images, sacred and secular, as we hear King's words. O God, we thank thee for the fact that you have inspired men and women in all nations and in all cultures. We call you different names. Some call thee Allah, some call you Elohim, some call you Jehovah, some call you Brahma, and some call you the unmoved mover. Some call you the architectonic good. Grant, O God, that we follow thee and become so committed to thy way and thy kingdom that we will be able to establish in our lives and in this world a brotherhood. We will be able to establish here a kingdom of understanding where men will live together as brothers and respect the dignity and worth of all human personality. Brothers, sisters, siblings in this Tufts community and beyond, we are breaking bread together in celebration. And let us do that in celebration of the many distinct faiths, cultures, and philosophies among us. And let us find ways amidst our difference to claim our common hopes for genuine liberation for ourselves and for our neighbors near and far. And now it is my honor to invite Sunil Kumar, 14th President of Tufts University, to offer welcome remarks.
Thank you, Chaplain. Thank you all for joining me today. Today marks the 10th anniversary of the collaboration between the Africana Center and the University Chaplaincy to bring together the Tufts community to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In spirit of collaboration in One Tufts, there will be celebrations on the Boston Health Sciences and on the Grafton campuses as well. I'd like to take a moment to thank colleagues from across the university, especially the University Chaplaincy, the Africana Center, the Tisch College of Civic Life, and the Office of Vice Provost for Institutional Inclusive Excellence for organizing this program. At this point, I'm usually done, but today, given everything our community has been through, I feel obliged to reflect and to say a little bit about what I have learned in the last few weeks. In particular, I want to talk to you about one person I learned about only a few weeks ago. Of course, it's a shame on me that I didn't know about him earlier. He was a man who worked with MLK, Bayard Rustin. He was, among other things, the architect on the March on Washington. I'm an operations guy. I study processes, and for him, the logistical planning manual he wrote, which is in the African American History Museum on the mall, is a stunning set of contradictions for a man who wanted to take down the system. He was extraordinarily systematic. This tells us something about the complexities of being a leader, the unique individualness of being a leader, especially those who change the world for the better. It has also led me to think about how history remembers leaders. Rustin was almost entirely forgotten until revived recently. I hope you will catch the screening of the film Rustin on February 22nd. When we remember MLK, we must remember the man who in many ways made MLK who he was. So with that, I will leave you to our keynote speaker. I think we have a musical interlude, so thank you for that.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Oh, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. Now let me tell you about a man named Moses and his battle with the Pharaoh. After a couple of years of captivity, he said it's time to let my people go. So he led God's people out of Egypt and as far as the Red Sea. And then he forged on ahead, as he said, not even an ocean can stop me, and I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Oh, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Oh, keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. And now we have a modern day Moses of our own, and he told the world about his dream of justice flowing like waterfalls and righteousness like a stream. And sometimes I wonder where we'd be if he didn't stand up and say, I'm gonna march up until we get to freedom land, and ain't nothing gonna stand in my way, and I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom. And I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Oh, keep on walking, keep on talking, keep on fighting, keep on hoping, keep on praying, keep on singing, marching up to freedom land.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katura Ragland, and I am a Ph.D. student in psychology, as well as a graduate assistant in the Office of the Vice Provost for Institutional Inclusive Excellence. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for the night. Boston native Christian Walks is the Director of Education and Interpretation Programs at the Museum of African History and a Ph.D. student in education at Harvard University, where he studies the history of African American education. Prior to matriculating into his doctoral program, Christian earned a Master's of Arts in Educational Studies from Tufts University and a Bachelor of Arts in English and Secondary Education from the University of Massachusetts, Boston. In addition to his role as a museum educator and student, he serves as an adjunct professor in the College of Education and Human Development at UMass Boston, and is a member of the Boston Writers Project Advisory Board. Christian holds memberships with the following professional associations: the American Educational Research Association, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and the American Educational Studies Association. We are very grateful to Christian for joining us tonight and sharing his wisdom and insights regarding Dr. King's letter and the significance it holds for us today. After we hear from Christian, he will be joined on stage by Monroe France, our Vice Provost for Institutional Inclusive Excellence, to dive a little bit deeper into the discussion. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Christian.
Thank you, Couture, for such a warm welcome this evening. And welcome to everyone here that joined us today. It's so nice to see such a beautiful turnout. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to the Africana Center, the Office of the President, the Office of the Vice Provost for Institutional Inclusive Excellence, Tisch College's Civic Life, and the University Chaplaincy for convening this wonderful celebration in honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I find myself especially honored to be invited here to speak on King's life and legacy through this year's theme, Single Garment of Destiny, a phrase of King's from the past that still resonates with our current moment. My remarks, entitled On King's Letter, The Road to Birmingham Jail and Beyond, seeks to historicize the road to King's imprisonment in Birmingham and draw lessons for us today. Now, I had hoped to have slides to provide visuals for this evening's remarks. However, rights to use one image of King for this presentation would have cost $450. And as you might imagine, that was outside of my budget. That is not to say that King is not worthy of that price, but I do hope you all understand. Therefore, I hope you can trace the threads of my presentation through the printed copies of King's letters that's provided on your tables in front of you. Again, the title of my remarks are On King's Letter, The Road to Birmingham Jail and Beyond. Let us get started. While many are familiar with the large-scale events such as the Birmingham Campaign, the March on Washington, and the Selma to Montgomery March, fewer are aware of the organizing tradition that anticipates this activism readily associated with the civil rights movement. Those large-scale, relatively short-term public demonstrations constituted what educator and civil rights activist Bob Moses termed the community mobilization tradition. It is this tradition that readily surfaces in public memory of the civil rights movement, characterized by direct action, sit-ins, marches, and boycotts. 1963, the year of King's arrest in Birmingham, was particularly active with these demonstrations. 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, Black communities across the South led mass protests to the institution of Jim Crow segregation. Birmingham and Gadsden, Alabama, Jackson and Greenwood, Mississippi, Danville, Virginia, Cambridge, Maryland, Tallahassee, Florida, Rome, Georgia, were just some of the sites in which these struggles took place. Reflecting on this year, King wrote, and I quote, "Seen in perspective, the summer of 1963 was historic, partly because it witnessed the first offensive in history launched by Negroes along a broad front. The heroic but spasmodic and isolated slave revolts of the antebellum South had fused, more than a century later, into a simultaneous, massive assault against segregation. Now, there are three questions organizing my remarks this evening. First, why is 1963 significant? What does the Birmingham campaign and King's letter from Birmingham Jail reveal about a heritable tradition of Black organizing? And finally, what do we inherit here today? In 1963, African Americans across the country reflected upon the notion of freedom on the centennial of the Emancipation Proclamation, the document enacted by President Abraham Lincoln declaring those enslaved in the Confederate States during the Civil War free. Shortly after the Birmingham campaign and the March on Washington in 1963, King began his own reflections, drawing upon his letter from Birmingham Jail to develop a book entitled Why We Can't Wait, to describe the quote-unquote Negro Revolution of 1963. He wrote, and I quote, "The milestone of the centennial of emancipation gave the Negro a reason to act, a reason so simple and so obvious he almost had to step back to see it," end quote. In this book, published in 1964, King observed the consequences of 1963 and the unfinished work of the civil rights struggle. While it is certainly true that 1963 saw a broad offensive against the institution of segregation, it is not the first time that Black Americans launched in a broad offensive against injustice. In her award-winning book, The Emancipation Circuit, Thulani Davis documents how this organizing tradition fermented in the South during the Civil War, a tradition that King himself inherited. That is to say, what happened to King in Birmingham in 1963 was not entirely new. King's imprisonment reflects a long history of Black activism in addition to a troubled history of policing and surveillance of such efforts. To understand the events of 1963 and King's arrest, we must turn all the way back to the antebellum South, the era before the Civil War and the enactment of the Emancipation Proclamation. Struggle for the control over Black life in the antebellum South prefigured the culture of Black organizing that would emerge in the spring and summer of 1963. Across the slaveholding South, Black organizing was met with great suspicion, surveillance, and hostility. Such attitudes towards Black assembly reflected white fears of insurrection, manifesting in legal and extra-legal efforts to restrict activities in Black communities. The earliest of such legislative efforts emerged in the colonial South, with religious assembly laws, anti-literacy laws, and border control laws that expanded across the 19th century. For example, in the wake of the Stonewall Rebellion in South Carolina, enslavers began to link literacy with Black resistance. Authorities in the colony introduced an anti-literacy law in 1740 that prohibited enslaved Black Americans from learning to read and write. Between 1740 and 1867, these laws expanded in the South and in some cases prohibited free Black people from congregating for the purpose of attaining literacy. These laws criminalized Black congregation and in some cases instituted border control measures to limit immigration of free Black people in the South out of fears that their presence would incite rebellion. The period of the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, brought about a new social political reality for Black Americans. Over the course of the Civil War, as the Union Army gained grounds on the Confederacy, some formerly enslaved fled plantations in pursuit of freedom on Union Army refugee camps. These military-sponsored camps became hotbeds of Black organizing that provide a heritable tradition for the modern civil rights movement. Thulani Davis describes how these military refugee camps became important nodes from which political ideas and methods were exchanged across the region through a physical network of people, organizations, trails, railroads, and waterways. Here, the Black Masonic movement, mutual aid organizations, benevolent societies, amongst other organizing groups, acted locally and across the region to politicize communities across the South in churches and schools, while also furnishing immediate needs such as food, shelter, and clothing. As Black communities across the South organized to negotiate the new realities of emancipation, Black codes sought to curtail such initiatives, namely vagrancy laws that allowed for the newly emancipated Black population to be arrested and sentenced to hard labor. Despite these restrictions, individuals and groups continued to network across time and space. Persecution was a threat for all organizers, a threat that existed nearly a century later when King was arrested in the Birmingham campaign. On April 10, 1963, the city government of Birmingham obtained a court injunction against anti-segregation protests, criminalizing the civil rights demonstrations in Birmingham. 2 days later, King, the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was arrested for violating the anti-protest injunction and was placed in solitary confinement. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference had headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, and those who argued against King's actions used that fact to frame him as a quote-unquote outsider coming in. In his retort to those who considered him unwise, King wrote in his letter, and I quote, "I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea." While confined in the Birmingham City Jail, King defended his leadership in the Birmingham campaign. To his critics, King asserted, and I quote, "You deplored the demonstrations taking place in Birmingham, but your statement, I am sorry to say, fails to express similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstration." He later expressed, and I quote, "We have waited for more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights. Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say, wait." As illustrated by the demonstrations that took place in 1963 across the South, waiting was not a viable option. And it was never across the span of African American history. As such, people organized across state lines and put their livelihoods on the line to organize in the name of freedom. An understanding of shared vulnerability prevailed. This was evidenced by the youth of Birmingham who took to the city streets in the wake of King's arrest, leading what is now recognized as the Children's Crusade. King's letter from Birmingham Jail in the spring and summer of 1963 draws our attention to a long Black organizing tradition, colored by persecution. Despite this culture of repression, Black communities organized across time, understanding the interrelatedness of all communities and states. You might ask, what does this have to do with us here today? Well, this tradition is well and alive with us. King's dismissal of the outside agitator idea resonates with the Black Lives Matter protests that gripped the nation in the summer of 2020. When George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were murdered, the overwhelming response was grounded in a sense of interrelatedness. Protests did not just occur in Minnesota and Kentucky. People across the nation understood their lot as connected to these brutal murders and mobilized for change across state borders. The idea of shared vulnerability prevailed once again. I would like to close with some excerpts from King's book, Why We Can't Wait, that beautifully illustrates this concept of shared vulnerability. In the introduction of this book, King writes, and I quote, "It is the beginning of the year of our Lord, 1963. I see a young Negro boy. He is sitting on a stoop in front of a vermin-infested apartment house in Harlem. The stench of garbage is in the halls. The drunks, the jobless, the junkies are shadow figures of his everyday world." End quote. This is juxtaposed against a young Negro girl. And he says, she is sitting on a stoop of a rickety wooden one-family house in Birmingham. Some visitors would call it a shack. It needs paint badly, and the patched-up roof appears to be in danger of caving in. Half a dozen small children in various stages of undress are scampering about the house. This boy and this girl, separated by stretching miles, are wondering, why does misery constantly haunt the Negro? It was the summer of 1963. Was emancipation a fact? Was it a force of freedom? The boy in Harlem stood up. The girl in Birmingham arose. Separated by stretching miles, both of them squared their shoulders and lifted their eyes toward heaven. Across the miles, they joined hands and took a firm step forward. It was the step that rocked the richest, most powerful nation to its foundations. This is the story of that boy and that girl. This is the story of why we can't wait. Now it is our time to stand up, join hands, and take a step forward, because we are all tied together through a single garment of destiny. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming back home to share your wisdom with all of us. Thank you for reminding us of this long history of what we inherit in terms of this tradition. And I actually just want to raise back up your 3 questions that really drove your talk that you shared with us tonight. And again, thank you for that gift. I should reintroduce myself, Monroe Friends. Thank you all for coming. And so your 3 questions is, why was 1963 significant? The Birmingham campaign and what it revealed to us about this inheriting of tradition of organizing. And then what do we inherit related to organizing in this contemporary time? So in reflection, and based on the talk you shared with us this evening, I actually have a question for you. So, and we talked about this a little bit before tonight, just so you know. And so I have this question about, what are you inheriting in terms of this tradition of organizing and your practice today? How does it inform your practice today? And I want you all to start thinking about that question as well, because we're going to turn that question to you too. But first, I would like you to answer that question, Christian, if you might.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to recognize that we're standing on the shoulders of giants who laid templates for us that we can learn from and adapt from our current moment. Now, things may look different, context may look different, but there are strategies that we can adopt for our current moment. I myself am in education, and I figure that to be a huge part of my identity. And also, when we're thinking about organizing across difference and across space, I don't consider my work to just be influential or meaningful here in the city of Boston. I'm a part of national networks of educators, Many educators across our country today are facing such challenging conditions. They're being told that they can't teach diverse histories. They're being told that they can't use certain words when they're teaching. There's a heavy surveillance of policing, of teaching, that is not necessarily new, that I myself see myself inheriting this tradition in our current moment. And so it may look different from what King's doing in the past, but I see myself when I go to conferences, working with teachers across networks in the National Writing Project, for example. I see myself as providing examples for how teachers can begin to navigate these circumstances, right? I'm also a museum professional, and so in the Museum of African American History, we see that as a refuge for people here in the city of Boston, and can really be a model for what folks are doing around the country, right? A lot of the information that folks are getting in school is not holistic. They're not getting the full truth. And so how can we leverage our community organizations to help fill in some of those missing pages? And so when teachers are coming to me across the country out of fear that they may lose their job for teaching a history that is deemed controversial, I see my role as providing an example of what things can look like to sort of maneuver around in this fugitive space to navigate some of these restrictions.
That is brilliant. And this piece around this interrelatedness, right? That, like, that injustice here is injustice everywhere. And as we think about sort of how we do the interconnectedness of organizing a moment, what gives you a sense of hope for the future?
I would say what gives me the hope is the future, the next generation. I'm thinking, and I'm going to call him out because he's in the room, but for example, Naheem Washington, who's in the room, that is the next generation. And I see myself being a model for folks. Naheem and I work together through this organization, Building Audacity, to go into Newton Public Schools to teach Black history to Black students who are hungry for that. That's a model for providing access to students who are hungry for this. And without the support of folks like Naheem, Alvalin, and Hamel, who are going into these schools on a weekly basis to do these lessons with students during this free period, I would not be able to do the work that I do. And they really are carrying this work on into the future and really give me hope that one day things will change. And that has always been a part of our tradition. And when I speak to the African American tradition, is that children were always at the center because they were carrying forth a rich legacy. That's why it's important to learn our history. And that's why in so many cases, our history is attempted to be taken from us because there's deep power in it. And so long as we know our history, we know where we come from, and we know the possibilities of where we can go. My role is helping those and facilitate that engagement with our history.
I mean, that is so profound because as I reflect on your talk, and I'm about to turn this to all of you to get an opportunity to engage at your table, but I want to say this last thing. As I reflect on your talk, your piece about sort of this is not new. And when you think about that, people felt that even Black people having literacy, was uprising, was something to be afraid of. And how we see that reflected in this current moment, as you named before in your talk about sort of removing books, wanting to sanitize Black history, and not for our young people to see them reflected in our textbooks, not new. And this is that connection you made again about understanding our history, understanding our past, and how it informs the present. Just want to say thank you again. You give me hope.
Oh, thank you, Monroe.
You give me hope.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it to this group. You now have an opportunity to be in community at your table. And we're going to ask you that same question in terms of King's legacy, this interrelatedness. As you think about this contemporary moment, how does his legacy live in you? How does he live in your work, your learning, your experience in life? How does his legacy live in you today? And that's where we're going to start. You have table facilitators that at your tables. They have this question they'll kickstart the conversation with, and then additional questions that they'll use to facilitate a conversation. I think we're 15, 20 minutes or so, right? And really what we want to do is just to be in community. There's no right answer. We just want you to show up exactly in the moment you're in now. How is his legacy living you today? Inspired by our dear brother here, Christian. Thank you very much. And I think my job is done for this evening, but thank you so much, Christian, again, for your contributions and your gift to all of us.
Thank you all for having me.
For your conversation.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I am Tiffany House, the Associate Director for Inclusive Faculty Engagement in the Office of the Vice Provost for Institutional Inclusive Excellence. It is my great pleasure to introduce this year's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Student Voices winners. Each year, students are invited through essays, poems, spoken word, songs, art, or performances to submit to the Student Voices Award, which invites them to respond to the theme of the annual celebration. This year's theme is a single garment of destiny. The Student Voices Award subcommittee evaluated submissions on the students' ability to demonstrate what it means to them to be caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. This year, we received nearly 3 times as many submissions as last year. Please give a round of applause to everyone who submitted their work. Thank you. It is now my great honor to announce that this year's winners are Alpha Massaquoi and Tatum Shutt. So we're going to get started with highlighting Alpha's work in just a moment. So he is a second-year graduate student in the Masters of Fine Arts Studio Art program at the SMFA. He submitted a beautiful, beautiful charcoal, and you can kind of see it right here, gorgeous, drawing entitled Season Change. Speaking of his work, Massaquoi wrote, "For a bit too long, Black joy and Black beauty have been placed in the background by society as an ambient noise meant to be forgotten. We are often reminded of our plight and struggles to be seen as humans and nothing less. This body of work is a celebration of Black beauty." The MLK Student Voices Awards subcommittee noted, Alpha's portrait offers a fierce depth and complexity in its representation of a Black woman. The artist's choices of using charcoal to draw brown hair and skin is particularly striking because of the detailed focus on light and shadows. They do so impressively. Charcoal means that there is a lot more focus on texture, such as the smoothness of the subject's skin and the twist in their hair. In addition to the subject's Black hair, there is also textured Black background of twisting ivy. Alpha shows his viewers that inside of the color Black are millions of layers and dimensions. I would like to invite Alpha Massaquoi to share a few reflections on their work.
Thank you so much. Wow. Actually hearing my work be read back to me is actually crazy. I am a second-year MFA student at the SMFA school. My work is primarily portraits because I love people. I love our people. My work, I am a trained painter, but I work in charcoal because charcoal is a medium that isn't seen as important. But if you put coal under pressure, it turns into diamond. So I think for me, as a Black person, if you put me under pressure, I'm gonna become a diamond. And so my work is all about celebrating Black joy, Black love, celebrating people. My work, it's crazy to hear her read back the stuff I've been writing for years. I'm actually almost in tears, but my work is just about celebrating all of the complexity of our people. You can't really see the amount of detail that's in the work right now because it's printed, but I do have a solo show in Kingston Gallery here in Boston. So if you want to check it out, you can go and check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alpha. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Tatum Shutt, a junior majoring in race, colonialism, and diaspora studies. Tatum submitted an essay that draws thematically on escapable mutuality. Their piece works in tandem with many voices from scholars, religious leaders, and poets to ground and advance their thinking on what it means to resist in solidarity. Feedback from the Student Voices Subcommittee included from the use of visceral imagery and the metaphor to bring us across time, space, and feeling, to the use of footnotes, facts, and quotes from external sources as an invitation to explore and contextualize our responsibility to each other's humanity. Tatum skillfully dances between personal history, origin stories, and the stakes of solidarity. Table facilitators have copies of Tatum's award-winning piece if you're interested in reading it. I'd like to invite Tatum to share reflections on their work.
Hi, everyone. Hi. I want to start by thanking the Africana Center and the Chaplaincy. And I want to also thank my teachers in the Department of Race, Colonialism, and Diaspora Studies, and also my family and my friends for supporting my writing and my growth. And I also want to start by thanking the movements for liberation that daily open my heart and steel my spine. I have something to share today that's not my piece, and it's a little more serious in tone because that's where I'm at today, and I hope you all can join me here. This Monday, the first American soldiers were killed in the violence unfolding in the Middle East. All were Black. 2 of the 3, Breonna Moffett and Kennedy Sanders, were girls almost my age. Their bodies will be shipped to Dover Airfield Base in Delaware, where I am from. I do not have the time here tonight, nor the expertise to speak on the specific racialized war machine of the military-industrial complex, as Dr. King did so expertly. I don't have time to recount the totality of suffering held in the statement that tonight every single hospital in Gaza, all 36, are at or near total incapacitation at the hands of the IDF. I do not have time to honor the children who sit mutely, caked in white dust from rubble generated by American bombs paid for by the tax dollars from my nonprofit intern salary. I do not have time to honor Breonna and Kennedy, nor speak the names of even a fraction of the over 25,000 people killed in Gaza since I wrote my first statement, and killed in all the land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. I don't even have time tonight to honor the birds chased from the sky. How do we talk about violence today? I sit in class. Students receive disciplinary infractions for protesting, and I win a prize. How do we not talk about violence today? The piece I wrote, that you can read on the table, is a reaching to you, to all of us, through myself, as a settler, as a Jew without homeland. It's an insistence that we witness, hold, and respond to the parts of ourselves, our communities, our institutions that are bound up in the suffering and resistance around us. I am asking myself and you not just to notice the pain in our network of mutuality, but to move. For me, Dr. King's memory burns brightest in the knowledge that we have work to do. In the spirit of this work, I will be donating the award funds I received tonight to the Palestine Legal Aid, which protects the civil and constitutional rights of people in the United States, students like me who speak out for freedom as Dr. King did and does through his words and through the work and love they inspire in us. I invite you to read my piece with care. And if you want to talk more, I'm here. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Alpha and Tatum. Next, I'd like to introduce Katrina Moore, the Senior Director of the Africana Center, who will engage us with closing remarks.
Hello, everyone. It's been my pleasure and an honor over the years that I have been here, for the last 15 years, to help with the planning of the recognition of the incredible work of Dr. King. And I am especially honored that we have now, for the last 10 years, worked with the chaplaincy to bring this event to fruition so that we are now celebrating not just on the Medford campus, but we have the opportunity for us to continue to continue our celebration on our other campuses across the area. So I would like to thank everyone, particularly the planning committee. We've been working on this for quite a while. But I'd also like to thank you for coming, for taking the time, even after we have celebrated the actual celebration date of Dr. King's work. We are still, every day, on this battlefield. We can't give up. So amidst the myriad quotes, accolades, awards, and reflections on Dr. King's enduring legacy that we share today, what strikes me most is Dr. King's unwavering faith, his belief that he was providentially placed by God, who granted him the strength to persevere through unimaginable hardships and challenges. His resolute conviction that we would ultimately overcome resonates deeply with me. I would strike out with a resounding rendition of "We Shall Overcome," but I'll spare you that tonight. Thank you for participating in this event. For many years, Tufts has provided this platform for us to unite as a community, reflecting not only on the life and legacy of Dr. King, but also translating our newfound awareness and thoughts into actionable plans. I extend a challenge to each of you. Leave this gathering with a renewed sense of determination. Commit to engaging in meaningful conversations with your colleagues, family, and friends. Continue the quest for truth and resolve to overcome obstacles by anchoring your life's work in honesty and understanding. Dr. King teaches us to emphasize seeing the humanity in each other, with love and compassion fueling his dream. Surround yourself with individuals who uplift and support you. Cultivate a celebration circle, a community that fosters encouragement and love. Let us carry forth the spirit of Dr. King, embracing the values of compassion, understanding, and unity as we work towards a better future for us all. Thank you so much for taking this time. And now I'd like to welcome our beautiful ladies of Essence to close our program.
Thank you guys again for having us. We'd like to ask that you please stand for the Black National Anthem. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Oh, 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 oh. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought.